Mike Winger's point 8, happily the same on both of his lists in his video comparing Psalm 22 with the Passion narrative of Jesus, has to do with verse 15 of the psalm, in which the psalmist states he is brought to the dust of death. For Mike, this means that the psalmist is describing poetically a literal death, and anyone familiar with the ancient scriptures would see this interpretation. This harkens back to the curse that befell Adam, where he was condemned to return to the dust from which he was formed. But unfortunately for Mike's purposes, what's being described doesn't of necessity have to be a literal death, of actually expiring, as occurs in the Passion narratives. It instead can just as likely be interpreted to mean that the author is being brought to the brink of death, not necessarily to death itself. And as you continue to read Psalm 22, other events occur after verse 15. The psalmist clearly, unlike Jesus, does not die. And of course, this fits in perfectly well with the context of Psalm 22. Having endured a prolonged illness, perhaps, having the feeling of abandonment and having his enemies circling around him, the psalmist feels he is at death's door. There is nowhere else for him to turn. We can see similar metaphors about being brought to the brink of death but not quite tilting over in other passages scattered about the Hebrew Bible. See Jonah 2:6, for example. To the roots of the mountains I sank down. The earth beneath barred me in forever. But you, Lord my God, brought my life up from the pit. The word translated pit here actually means grave in Hebrew. Now, no one believes Jonah really died and was resurrected. This is a poetic description about being brought to death's door. We find a similar phrase in 2 Samuel 22:6. The cords of the grave coiled around me. The snares of death confronted me. Grave here is the translation of the Hebrew Sheol, or the realm of the dead. But again, the sense here is not of literally dying and being brought back to life, but of being brought close to death. And so it is the same with Psalm 22:15. Being brought to the dust of death does not mean literally dying, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be equated with Jesus' crucifixion. The Apologist may not see any other explanation, but then again, they aren't looking for one.